Welcome to this short demo video for ConnectIT 365, where I will show you how to create an export definition using JSON as data format. In a previous video, I already explained how to create definitionalize manually. However, today I will show you how to create a definitionalize using our wizard. So as always, we start at the ConnectIT Manager Role Center, and from here we go to Export Definitions. To start with creating this using the wizard, we create a new definition. Of course, we give it the appropriate name. And for this demo, we will leave the data format on JSON, and we will also leave the method on manually. We set the definition to active instead of creating the definition lines manually, as we discussed previously. We will use import function that will show us a wizard. For this definition, we will use a demo file that we have available that is similar to the previous file. And it's good to note here that it contains a single item. It contains a relation to the unit of measure table. It also contains a link to the item unit of measure, which can contain multiple related records. And it contains vendor information that is available in the item table. However, it is expected in a separate node. So what we can do from here is, instead of creating the lines manually line by line, is to use the create definitionalize option and choose our file. From here, the wizard will guide us through all the nodes in the file, starting with the root nodes. In this case, we can select whether or not that's a data item. If we don't select a data item, it will automatically turn it into a helper line. And if we select the data item, we can choose which table to use. So in this case, we want the root nodes to link to the item table. And from here we can choose next. As you can see, the next node is available, which is the base unit of measure. And that's something that we will link to the unit of measure table. Next up is the item unit of measure. And that will also be data item line. And the last node that is available is the vendor information, and that's something that we'll leave as a helper. And from here, you can see that the import of the file is finished and all the lines are created. As selected in the wizard, you can see that we have three data items. Right now, the item, the unit of measure, and the item unit of measure. And the vendor information is set as a helper. All that's left to do right now is to link the data items, map the fields, and look if we need to do something else to get the information in the correct place. When using and creating the definition manually, we also use the constant line, so we will look into that later on. For now, we will start with mapping the fields. So first up, we have the item number, the description, and the base unit of measure. In the unit of measure table, we want a description and international standard code. In the item unit of measure table, we want to get the unit of measure codes the quantity per unit of measure, and the weight. Next up, we have a field that isn't actually a field in the item table, but is a field in the unit of measure table. So we want to leave that for now, and we will come back to it later. Then we have the type, and then we have the helper node. And then we have two fields once again back in the item table on the same level as the item. So that's almost all the fields for now. The only thing that we didn't do was the unit of measure international standard code that is available in the unit of measure table, but not in the item table itself. So for that, we want to use a constant. And what we want to do is use the function to get this from the unit of measure table. So I have created a new temporary code, and for the constant value, we will get that same temporary value back. Next up, we want to make sure that all the tables are related. So for this, we need to add some additional lines. In this case, the unit of measure needs to be linked to the base unit of measure in the item table. So for this, we will add a new line with the code, and we will link that to the base unit of measure in the item table. Of course, we don't want that in the output, so we will turn that option off. The same goes for the item unit of measure. However, instead of linking that to the unit of measure code, we want to link that to the item number. And that, of course, is field number 1. Once again, we want to deselect the output. And then we have our relations between the data items. One additional thing that we need to do is, because we have a relation between the item unit of measure and the item that can contain multiple records for the item unit of measure, is to set this as an array. If we don't turn that option on, then we only get one record, and that's the first record that it will find based on the relation. That should pretty much be the structure for this file. However, we want to do one thing to check against the original file. Let's make sure that we get the same item back. So I will just set a filter on the item number as the same item number that's in the demo file. And right now you can see that that's also set up as one filter on the item table. So to check if we have set up the definition properly, we can use create example export. And we can look at the output and compare that to the original file. And here you can see that both files are identical. So that should be all to create this definition. And here you can see that we have done pretty much the same as we have done previously when creating this manually. However, instead we have used the wizard to already create most of the structure for us, so that we don't have to worry about that. And also, it already took care of all the element names, so that we didn't have to look at that as well. That is all for this video. I want to thank you for joining this video. And if you have any questions, you can contact us at sales@idin.nl.